based on the works of Karol Wyszyński. Diaries of Magic Eyes.
October 2nd, 1334, Raspberry Village. Dobrzegniew mercenary, seasoned novice. We managed to achieve our goal and rescue the kidnapped woman. Unfortunately, we paid a high price. Yesterday evening we reached the abandoned mine, where the kidnappers' hideout was located. The entrance was guarded by 2 guards whom we took care of. Unnoticed, we wandered the corridors until we overheard a conversation from which we learned the exact location of the captive. We reached the place without raising the alarm. Plamina was battered and unconscious. It was the first time I had seen her, but when I looked at her, I got the impression that I knew her from somewhere. However, I did not have time to think any further, because 2 bandits noticed us and raised the alarm. We had to get out of there as quickly as possible. Bratimir, Izber, Boguslawa and I were in the front, fighting the enemies, and Jarmila was carrying the unconscious woman. The way we came here was blocked, so we had to find another way out. Wandering through the corridors, we hit a dead end. All we could do was hope that we would hold out long enough for the enemies to finish. We held on bravely until we heard a scream behind us. Our hearts stopped when we saw 5 bandits who had gone through a hidden passage behind the wardrobe and attacked Jarmila. Before I could react, Bratimir had already rushed to help. He pushed one away, knocked down another, fought a third, but when he saw another one taking a swing at the defenseless Jarmila, he covered her with his own body. After receiving a direct hit to the chest, he fell to the ground. The enemies kept pressing on me. I couldn't move to prevent them from breaking through our defenses. I couldn't help my comrade. Unexpectedly, Boguslawa took matters into her own hands. Her eyes glowed with green light. She charged at the bandit with unearthly speed, piercing him and pressing him against the wall with her spear, breaking it under the pressure. She pulled out her daggers and dealt with the others, then returned to us. Her eyes glowed continuously. She jumped over us straight into the crowd of kidnappers, eliminating one by one. However, the situation was still difficult. We were running out of time and the enemies were growing. I decided to use my ace up my sleeve. I ordered Boguslawa to retreat. As she passed me, I activated my magic eyes, which glowed blue along with my weapon. I struck my mace against the shield with all my strength, causing a powerful shock wave that knocked out everyone in front of me. Taking advantage of the situation, we took the wounded companions and got out of this cursed mine. At the very end, 2 more archers stood before us, but Boguslawa sacrificed her daggers to eliminate this obstacle. After some time, we reached a nearby village called Raspberry Village. As soon as we entered the inn, we began to beg for help from a doctor. We were lucky because there was a doctor on site, but unfortunately he refused to help us, due to my bad reputation. This was the moment when I regretted creating the character of Dobrzegniew more than ever. The doctor replied that he would help us if we paid him, but not with gold, but with some valuable item. We had nothing of value, so I was about to start panicking, but Boguslawa saved the situation again. She pulled out a bottle of hop wine and handed it to the doctor. He tasted the drink, ran out of the inn and returned a moment later with medicine. Plamina was still unconscious, Izber was watching over his beloved, and the doctor was trying to save Bratimir. In the meantime, Boguslawa and I were sitting on a bench waiting for news. I felt like my whole world was about to collapse. I couldn't accept that I could lose my friends. Suddenly I felt a touch on my left shoulder. I turned my head and saw Boguslawa looking at me with her emerald eyes full of concern and compassion. Those eyes, so comforting, so familiar. I couldn't stop looking at them. I started to lean towards her and so did she. Our lips met, the slight pressure turned into a deep kiss. Boguslawa grabbed my cheeks and didn't want to let go of me. I completely immersed myself in that moment. I put my arms around her and then I felt moisture on her left shoulder and she jumped back. We noticed a bleeding wound on Boguslawa's left shoulder. My heart sank. The thought crossed my mind that I could lose her too. She tried to reassure me that it was just a scratch and she would dress it herself in a moment. I refused and went to get some dressings, then I helped her take off her armor so I could disinfect the wound. To distract her from the pain, I decided to talk to her. Unfortunately, I chose one of the worst possible topics. I asked her who she really was, that she had magic eyes. She answered me with one sentence, "I could ask you the same thing." I didn't dare to ask any more questions. We sat in silence for the rest of the time. After some time, which seemed like an eternity, the doctor finally came to us. He said that Jarmila and Plamina would get through this. When we asked the question about Bratimir, the doctor lowered his head and said that we should say goodbye. I felt like someone was ripping a piece of my heart out of my chest. I hoped that my friend would get through this. When we entered the room, we saw Bratimir lying on the bed, and Isbr standing next to him and Jarmila kneeling, shedding tears. It was the first time in my life that I saw Bratimir speak so openly about his feelings. He confessed his love to his beloved and closed his eyes. The next day we buried him together in a nearby cemetery. We spent the entire day locked in our rooms at the inn, overwhelmed by the tragedy.